Welcome to the Growing Pains podcast. This is our second episode, and I'm really excited to have a conversation with our guest, Denzil, who is the founder of Smarty.ai. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, why don't we start giving our listeners a little bit of background about you? Tell us what was your early interest in coding? And is your background in programming, or how is it that you come to be the founder of a tech company?
Yeah, great question. Would love to dive in. So I actually started coding very early in life. I was very lucky that my school provided like this child programming language called Logo, where there was a turtle and you would tell the turtle what to do, like go through puzzles or build a house. And I fell in love. I just really, it just clicked for me. It was very logical. I understood exactly what you needed to say to the turtle to get it to do what you wanted. And I remember I was also, I guess, like good at it compared to some of my friends who were like, this is the most boring class ever. And so I just really clicked very early on and I just really enjoyed it. And so then I ended up pursuing learning more about programming. And I was very lucky in that my dad was technical as well.
Okay.
He was an electrical engineer by trade. And so I got a lot of exposure to it early on in life, but really um, continued studying computer science through school, through activities and hobbies. And I took that passion with me to college. So I went to MIT and I studied computer science there. I loved it. Of all the things I tried, because I do have a lot of interest, so I tried out a lot of things. I kept finding myself coming back to computer science over and over again. And I ended up doing a master's as well there in AI. Back then,
Okay.
AI was still considered like almost like the fountain of youth. No one's really going to figure it out, but it's cool
Yeah.
and it's a technology that's out there. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to ever do anything with AI, but I was very excited by the concept of it. But I also had a lot of interest, so I still wasn't sure I really wanted to do tech. I also definitely out of college knew I didn't want to be a founder because for some reason I had this mindset that being a founder was not for someone like me, it was for someone else. And I don't know where that mindset came from, but I was very anti being a founder. So I went to big tech. I started as a product manager on PowerPoint, and then I switched to being a software engineer at Yammer because I missed coding and being a PM was not fulfilling me in the way that I wanted to be fulfilled right out of college. But then I still felt like I wanted to try out new things. So I started interning while working full time for a politician, a lawyer. I tried out finance for a little bit. I also started teaching for a little bit, trying to see where my interest really laid.
Yeah.
Decided to go to business school because I felt like that was like the best way to really diversify my skill set. But I kept finding myself coming back to coding, and I came up with the idea while I was at business school for Smarty.
Oh, wow. Okay. So typically there's a business, a problem that you're trying to solve. What is the problem that Smarty.ai solves?
Yeah, so I probably went about this in a very unconventional way. I really built Smarty for myself. While I was at business school, I was feeling extremely overwhelmed between my personal commitments, my professional commitments, school, and my extracurriculars, and really having this feeling of not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, what jobs I wanted to interview for. And it just felt
Yeah.
all of that. And I had all of this stuff on my plate. And I was like, technology can automate how I'm getting this stuff done easily. Existing technology could easily automate all of the things on my plate. And so why do I not have something that where I can just brain dump all of these tasks and know that it's going to get done? And so really I started building Smarty for myself as a chatbot. I would chat Smarty things
Mhm.
and it would automate how to do them if it could, or otherwise it would just find a place on my calendar for making time to get it done. And so this idea that I was never going to drop the ball, it was going to capture everything that I needed to do and automate whatever it could. And so that's how I started working on Smarty in business school. I pitched it to an investor. I showed her what I was working on, and she said no. And she gave me a lot of feedback on
Yeah.
really need to do to build a startup because I'm a first time founder. I really, as I said, like didn't want to be a founder, really just was a calling that kept drawing me in over time. And so I kept working on Smarty after business school on the side. And then I kept pitching to the same investor because she was the only investor I really knew and that I was in touch with. And I think she just appreciated my persistence and the changes that I was making. I was taking her feedback and turning it into actionable changes. And so she actually ended up being our first check as part of her fund. She started her own fund, Pear Ventures, out in the Bay Area. And so that's how I got my first institutional capital. And I think my biggest learning from that experience was a no is just a no right now. You
Right.
shouldn't take things personally. You shouldn't think people are out to get you or against you. It's really about aligning incentives and cultivating your network and trying to take the feedback when you can and keep iterating.
That's a great growing pains tip. So you're building a AI-driven productivity tool. There's been a lot of innovation in the AI space. There's a lot of buzz around LLMs, the evolution of chatbots themselves. Like, what have been some of the biggest technical challenges in building Smarty?
Yeah, so let me back up a step and talk a little bit about how Smarty works today. And
Yeah.
so Smarty is trying to be your AI executive assistant in the form of a conversational calendar. So I can say something like coffee with Stella at Blue Bottle in San Francisco at 2 p.m. London time. And Smarty will send a calendar invite to me and Stella with the right time zone, the right location. And it just takes me a single command to get it done. And that's just in calendar management, but we're also in task management, email management, scheduling links management, contact management. So we're trying to be this conversational executive assistant for everything administrative that you do as part of work. And a lot of our users today are small business owners, freelancers, solopreneurs, a lot of teams of one who maybe had experience with an EA in a past job or and know exactly what that's like to have someone who knows you so well and can get things done for you, or is someone who wants an EA, but an EA or a VA is either too much work and training or
Yeah.
too much money. And so want a tool that makes them smarter and better. And so that's how Smarty's used today, and that's how it works today. And in terms of the technical challenges here, I started working on Smarty and AI, and like I had this pitch back in 2018. I use the same pitch today, but the appetite for the pitch has changed so much in the last 5 years. LLMs and Gen AI and just this launch of ChatGPT has just changed the way that people think about AI as a technology and as a tool and how it's going to transform every job, every industry that is out there today. And so there are a lot of technical challenges that came pre this launch and then now today. So pre Gen AI, I was using a lot of machine learning and APIs that allowed for that. Post Gen AI, I'm now starting to try to layer in this new AI technology that exists. It's very new, it's very fresh. Even machine learning experts 2 years ago are like, this is a completely different
Yeah.
way of thinking and building products. And so there are a lot of technical challenges that come with that, but I actually think it's very exciting because everyone's kind of on the same playing field. This is the time to become an AI expert because really that expertise is going to come into play in 5 or 10 years. And so for everyone out there, improve your AI literacy, learn and experiment with these tools out there because it's an exciting time.
It is an exciting time. And I think also as a female founder, I'm sure a lot of our listeners would also be interested in hearing, I'm sure it comes with its own unique set of challenges. But it looks like you're overcoming them. Maybe you can share. Have there been any challenges being a female founder? How have you found that journey to be?
I think there's always systemic biases and subconscious biases that you have no control over, and you have to just learn to play the hand that you've been dealt, which is
Mhm.
unfortunate, but is the truth. I think the other challenge that I've been actually seeing a lot more recently, I guess I never really thought about it, but there's already so few women in tech fields. There's so few female founders or even female investors. And then on top of that, now you're adding this third layer of women in AI. And I
Mm.
been to just 3 conferences over the last week, and one of the conferences I went to last Tuesday, there were 12 speakers, no women speakers, no women moderators, and it's not like women in AI don't exist. It's not like women in tech don't exist, and so
Right.
I think I used to never really think about it, and now I guess I've become more and more aware of it. And I think the number one thing to women who might be seeing that, you shouldn't let the numbers get you down or stop you from pursuing what you want. You have to play the cards that you have with the opportunities that you have, and just you have to believe in yourself. And I think as a founder, you really, really have to believe in yourself because you're
Yeah.
never going to get external validations. You have to be driven internally. And so, I think it's just part of building that muscle. It probably
Yeah.
makes you better at it.
I'm sure. Well, we'll need to get you on more stages. So there's technical challenges. There are challenges, as a female founder. What are some of the growth challenges? As you're looking to get past sort of the MVP stage, or what stage would you say you're at right now, and what are some of the challenges with respect to growth or scaling, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, as a first-time founder, you make a lot of mistakes that you you learn through doing. And so the next time you start a startup, you're like, okay, you're not going to make those mistakes. And so I've definitely made a lot of those, and happy to talk about that. But first, about the startup journey, I think you start with the idea stage, then you go to the minimum viable product stage where you have something really basic that is solving a problem for someone very specific. And then I think you go to the minimum viable company stage where you are profitable, you have revenue coming in, and you don't need to raise money to scale, or you don't need to raise money to live, but you need to raise money to scale. And so, idea, MVP, MVC, and I'm in this middle area between MVP and MVC. We've turned on revenue, we have customers, we have a good sense of who our customer is, but we're still improving our product, and still improving our marketing to increase sales and become profitable. And so that's where I'm at in this startup journey. And I think there have been so many huge growing pains and learnings through that. And so, I think the first big lesson that I've really embraced recently is this idea of how everyone faces imposter syndrome. But the difference between imposter syndrome and growth mindset is just a single word, yet. YET, yet, because
Yes.
imposter syndrome is this idea, I can't do this, and everyone knows I can't do this. And growth
Mhm.
mindset is, I can't do this yet, but I can find the right person, the right resources, the right mentor to help me learn. And so I think a lot of being a startup founder is the unknown unknowns and not becoming dejected by not having a roadmap or a clear strategy or a clear path, and instead being willing to experiment and test different ideas and to just keep going and learning as fast as you can. So I think that's my number one learning from the founder's journey. The other two big learnings I have is it's really important to hire the right team, to find the right people to work with who are equally invested in you and the idea. And it's better to not work with someone, and save money or save your time and energy, and instead wait to find the right person. And then the last one is it's really, really important to find your users and be customer obsessed. Don't build a product without data and validation from your users. So I'm technical, I'm a builder, I enjoy building. I spent too much time building and not enough time validating. And so that's my last piece.
So you mentioned people. How do you go about finding the right people, whether it's technical talent? Um, Ever since COVID and in the post-COVID world, I'm sure the whole world has opened up in terms of places that you can hire technical talent from. How has that worked for you? Are you in the stage where you're bringing more people on from an engineering perspective? Who has how have you thought about scaling your team?
Yeah, so our team today is three full-time engineers and one full-time UI UX researcher. And so it took us a long time to get to this core team, and they're amazing. Everyone is so bought into the vision, the product is very excited about what they're doing, and is willing to wear a lot of hats. I think the smaller your company, the smaller the stage, you need people who are not necessarily the most experienced or the most qualified, but really those people that are hungry to learn and hungry to do everything that's needed. Not someone who needs a very cookie cutter role, but someone who's willing to look at the whole landscape and figure out, okay, this isn't my expertise, but I'm going to figure out how to get it done. And so I think that's really important when you're earlier on and you're starting and creating something new. In terms of hiring, so I when I first raised money, I felt like I had a lot of pressure to just start building and start immediately finding someone who could help me build. And so I just kind of hired the first person that seemed qualified. And passion matters, your energy matters, your commitment to the idea matters more than almost, I would say, like ability. And so I've learned that over time. Ideally, you want to find someone who has great ability and passion. And I do have that in our current team. But it took me a long time to figure out how do you ask and find and test that. And so what's worked for me for our first hire was just doing trial basis projects together where we both are testing it out. It's important that the other person also decides if this is a good fit for them or not. And then once we had our first hire, it became actually easier to hire because there's a little bit more accountability in finding folks. You ask for referrals, you look at each other's networks, and that makes it easier every time.
That makes a lot of sense. What has the product development process been like? Any insights from sort of taking things from that ideation phase through to scaling as you think about expanding the product offerings? Anything you'd like to share with our audience?
Definitely. I think that is such a great question right now because I think it is easier than ever to build something and to test and validate an idea. And I think there's so many ways that you can, on the internet, very inexpensively start validating ideas without ever building anything. And that's because you can create website landing pages where you're really just testing what is the value proposition and trying to draw people into a wait list. I think that's one of the best ways to validate an idea because you can see, okay, what language is bringing users in? Who are these users? Where are they coming from? And then you can start interviewing those users, trying to understand what is a common pain point among all of them. And then you can start with these interviews, just asking them, okay, what is the solution you want? Then you go back to those same users with a mock-up, just like static images and say, okay, this is how, what do you think of this product? How does this work for you? And you can do so much without ever like typing a line of code and figuring out who's the user, what is their problem, how much are they willing to pay for it, and how is the product going to work. And so I think really if for any aspiring founder out there, just try like selling an idea online and seeing if people are coming in and interested. It is such a great skill set to be able to validate an idea, and it's one that you will continue to use as a founder. So without any capital, you can start working on that skill today if that's something you want to do. And if I was going to start another startup, that's definitely how I would get started. In terms of our product development, now that we're like further along,
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a it's really about creating this flywheel of getting user research insights and data as fast as possible, and then designing to solve those problems and translating those designs to development, testing it and launching it, and then starting all over, getting more user feedback. And so that's the number one thing you want to do as any founder is to get user feedback as quick as possible and respond to that feedback as soon as you can.
Makes a lot of sense. So part of the growing pains of being a founder is sometimes trying to find that balance. And how do you think about work-life balance? And is there a role that you think Smarty can play in that?
Definitely. So I use Smarty to maintain my work-life balance. I put into Smarty all the habits that I want to make sure that I try to do every day in terms of like working out, taking time to have lunch and dinner with my family, just always really like making sure everything that's important to me is captured on my calendar. And Smarty's helping me track that. And so Smarty's a big part of my tool usage in terms of uh, finding that work-life balance. Another thing that I really think about a lot and have been thinking about this year is managing my energy. Every day, planning my day around activities that energize me and activities that detract my energy. So there's obviously work as part of your business that you're going to have to do that is very draining, paying bills, bureaucracy, like talking to a lawyer potentially. There are things you're going to have to do that drain your energy. And so you have to balance those items on your calendar with activities that get your creative juices flowing and keep your energy at a peak
Yeah.
and at a high. And so really Smarty also actually helps me. We do that. The whole point of Smarty is to help me time block everything on my calendar and to help me track my energy day to day. So I know that I'm planning my best day every day.
Man, I gotta try the Smarty app because I need a little bit of that energy boost too. you know. Just to bring it back to AI, it sounds like you're passionate about demystifying AI. Can you share some common misconceptions people might have about AI as a founder that's working in this space?
Definitely. I think a lot of people who are not exposed to AI tools today think AI is too complicated or too complex for them to be able to understand that it's not really going to ever affect their daily livelihood or their daily work. And they're almost intimidated by it. And I really want people to not feel that way. I think it's so important to work on your AI literacy to understand how AI tools work and how you can use them, which isn't the same thing as building with AI. It's really about using AI. And I think people who become experts in using AI will have many job opportunities open up to them in the next 5 or 10 years. And I think the best way to work on your AI literacy is to take a passion project and try to find the complementary AI tool for that. So if you are an artist, play around with AI art tools like Midjourney, submit your art to the AI assistant, see what it comes back with, and try just learning how to prompt these AI tools if you're into art. If you're a writer or if you're a musician, it's the same thing. There's AI writing tools out there. There are AI composers out there. There's so many things that you can do that complement your passions. And it's such a great way to start understanding how do you prompt AI tools? How do you work with them? And I think if you become an expert in your own little niche and space, you'll find a lot of opportunities will open up for you.
So earlier you mentioned, focusing on one investor who ultimately ended up being, the first person who kind of wrote a check. What role did mentorship play in your journey as a founder? Was that woman one of your mentors, or are there other mentors who have played a role in helping you bring Smarty to life?
I think mentors are, of course, a very transformational part of any career journey, regardless of whether it's founder's journey or just trying to climb the corporate ladder. And my first investor was definitely a mentor in many ways. I'm still in touch with her all the time. She's constantly giving me advice around what she thinks we should be doing as a company. I think it's really important to find mentors at different stages as well. Someone who's aspirationally above where you are today, someone who's just a few steps ahead of you. I have founders that are just one stage ahead of me, 3 stages ahead of me. And it's great to hear how they think about things and how that perspective changes over time. But then also your peers can be mentors as well. And I often find collaborating with people who are at the same level with you, a same level as you is also very useful because I think one thing with mentorship is it can often feel like a favor, like you're taking the other person's time, you're taking their
Yeah.
energy. And sometimes you feel like you're not giving as much as you're getting, whereas like with a peer you're both giving and getting, and there it's a favor for both of you. And so sometimes it's easier to ask what you want, and it's easier to spend time collaborating. And so I also think it's really important to find people who are at the same level as you. And then finally, of course, you should find people who are a couple of steps behind you for many reasons. Of course, you should pay it forward, but also people who are a few stages behind you, they might have innovative ways of thinking and jump starting what they're doing to get to catch up to you, and you might learn from them as well. So really, it's important to have mentors at all levels.
Yeah. So what's in store for Smarty in terms of innovation or use of AI? Can you share anything that you have on the horizon that you'd want our listeners to know about?
Definitely. So this year is a very exciting year for Smarty. We're really, of course, focused on getting to profitability, and we're excited about our pipeline to get there. But in terms of our product roadmap, there's a lot of really exciting things coming out. So we're hoping to start adding integrations to a lot more third-party applications like Notion, Monday.com. So really allowing Smarty to be this all-in-one place where you conversationally interact with all the tools that you use online. So that's like a big push for us. The second is really making it easier to converse with Smarty conversationally. So we're hoping to add in a voice API this year. We're hoping to make it more natural language where you can use it on your phone. You can use it through text messages. So that's part of our roadmap for the year in product development. And then the last thing, a lot more AI focused, is we're hoping to build out more user specific data models. So really the way that AI works today, I like to call it the 3 Ps of AI. It's predictive, it's proactive, and it's personalized. And that last aspect of being personalized means taking your personal user data and understanding your preferences, the way you like to work. And so we're hoping to build some AI models that do exactly that.
So it sounds like, in order for Smarty to be super smart about me as a person and my needs, I do have to give it a lot of information and personal data. So, how do you think about security and privacy? There's always that give and take between convenience versus, needing to keep things secure. How do you think about those things?
It's such a great question, and it's always top of mind for us for many reasons. But we use all of the best practices in security today. We use all of the best encryption, we use best storage practices, and we also go through an annual audit of our security systems in order to make sure that they're at the cutting edge of how you can protect one's data. A secondary part of this is we try to store as little data of the users as possible, only the information that we really need. Otherwise, we try to do these calculations in real time without storing the data. So that's another way that we try to keep it safe and protected. And then the third thing is our business model is not based off sharing your data with other applications. Our business model is very much about keeping your data in one place, not sharing it with anyone. And so it's very different than an ad revenue model or a model where selling data is part of the business model. That is not where we are. It's not where we ever want to be. It's very much about protecting your data and keeping it secure for you.
Okay, well, let's set that aside for a second because it sounds like um, Smarty could be like a really amazing personal assistant. And you mentioned that second P, which I think was predictive.
I can go through
Um,
the three Ps. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to just understand because, we're creatures of habit, at least in my case, we're creatures of habit. I have a set routine each week. And so, can I assume that they'll get to a stage where Smarty will be able to kind of anticipate some of my scheduling needs? Or how do you think about that?
Yeah, so I really think every AI tool is based off three principles, which I like to call the three Ps. It's predictive, proactive, and personalized. And so
Got it.
predictive is this concept of using past data to predict what you're going to do next. And so all AI tools are really trying to use past data to understand what comes next. Proactive means automating those next steps, knowing what you're going to do next. How can we automate those next steps? And finally, personalized is using your preferences, your personal data to understand what you would do next. Because there might be three possible next steps, but you might only do option B every time. And so AI can use your personal data to proactively do exactly what you would do. And so that's what we're really trying to do at Smarty as well, is integrate those three Ps of AI. And exactly as you said, the goal with Smarty, as we get smarter, as we understand and develop the technology, is okay, I got a calendar invite from Stella. I only like to talk to Stella on Monday mornings. And so Smarty will find your Monday morning time block where you're free to talk to Stella. And so, really trying to understand how you've worked in the past to predict and personalize those next steps.
Fantastic. So today it works in an app, as an
For
app.
web app today,
Got it. Are there any plans to integrate into robots?
yeah. We're hoping to get into mobile later this year and then hopefully
Okay.
expand to other platforms as well. But for now, we're just focused on the web app because most of our users are using this on their desktop computer at home. So that's just
Okay.
where we're starting.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just have one last question, just sort of like reflecting on your journey so far. What are you most proud of? What are some of your long-term goals for Smarty?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is just like grateful to be here and to have gotten to this point. I really, when I first started with the idea back in 2018, I could never have imagined that we would have been able to raise so much money. We would have been able to build this product, to have this team. And I'm just so grateful to be able to have gone through this journey and to get to this point. And I think a big learning from the founder's journey is that you have to celebrate small wins because I tell myself every year, I wish I was at this point a year ago. The fact is, a year ago, I would have been so excited to know that I was going to get here. And so it's really important to take time every day to just celebrate the little wins and the progress you've made. And then in terms of what I'm most excited about for Smarty this year, just hoping to get to profitability, to get from that stage of MVP to MVC, the minimum viable company. I think we're on track to do that, and I'm really excited.
Well, I will say congratulations ahead of time, and certainly for what you've accomplished to date. Thank you so much for joining us on the Growing Pains podcast. How can people connect with you and or potentially, your product?
Please come find Smarty at Smarty.ai. That's our website. Try out the product or at least sign up for the newsletter so that you can stay up to date on our progress. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Denzil Eden. It's my favorite place to connect with folks. And I love talking about productivity, future of work, AI, or just like career strategy. Please let me know if you want to chat.
Thank you so much. There you have it, folks. We will see you on another episode of the Growing Pains podcast. And thank you, Denzel Eden, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.